I'm Peter from the Daily Rios.
And I'm Eric from Longbox Review. And this is Peter and Eric's Legion Project Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Legion Project Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Eric, and joining me as always is the lovely Peter Rios. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Eric, how are you? I'm lovely. I love that.
Well, you know, I'm looking at your Skype avatar, and you look very lovely as a redhead.
The Scarlet Rios.
That's right, Scarlet Rios. Actually, I'm surprised you don't have, say, Puppet Rios on here.
I think I did it for shock value.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had, I noticed on Twitter sometime shortly ago, you had a picture with the Puppet Rios and just brought back lots of memories of listening to the Puppet Rios on CGS.
God, he's a maniac. It was fun. It was fun seeing him again. He was quite dusty. You know, for old time's sake, had to get a picture. You know how sibling relationships are.
So the puppet, you consider Puppet Rios a brother figure?
I don't know. Maybe he's a clone. Maybe he's like Brainiac 5. He's my descendant. I don't know.
Wait, well, Peter. He's an SW6 batch.
Yeah.
to bring it back to the Legion.
Puppet Rios. How is we should give an update on the smoke and the fire. I remember last episode you were talking about that.
Oh my God. Still around and actually slightly worse.
Oh, Eric.
Yeah. I don't know if you could tell in my voice, but I feel like my voice is kind of dry and graty because I've been breathing in smoke for days and, well, actually weeks. Yeah, it's not good. It's not as bad as last year about this time, though. That was really bad.
Wow.
So, you know, small, or you know, good things, I guess, or something.
Oof. You are definitely Fire Lad.
Yeah, I don't want to be Fire Lad.
No, because he did that, right? He could breathe fire.
Yeah, and often caught things on fire because he was uncontrollable.
Oh my God. Well, we are recording this episode. We have yet to release episode 9, just in case people are, you know, wondering, hey, where's my feedback? But please, you know, send us feedback. We always want to hear what you're thinking of. And, you know, do you like these episodes? Are they jiving? Are we making you spend money and buying back issues of the series? And we're coming up on some pretty interesting storylines soon. So by all means, you don't have to just react to the episode. You can be proactive and send an email about a future issue. We'll keep it in the file and we'll pull it out. We would love to get some talking points on some things. So
yeah, just because we are addressing these things issue by issue and trying not to read ahead, that doesn't mean that our listeners can't do that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Shall we thank our composer for our theme music, RhoMusic, providing us with that awesome intro, Lost City. And as always, you can find his links, that person's links, I should say, on our show notes. That's right. So speaking of feedback, why don't we do you have any news or anything? Let's start with news. Do you have anything? I don't have anything.
No.
No. Right?
I mean, I see stuff on Twitter all the time about Brainiac 5 on Supergirl, and
yeah,
I sometimes I wonder, because I'm not caught up on the show, And I think it's mostly just a Brainiac 5 fan just trying to glean every little bit of news and wonderfulness about Brainiac 5 based on that show. So I'm not really sure how much of that is, newsworthy, I guess.
And I mean, I could say, but if you're going to catch up, I don't want to spoil you. So
I don't care.
Not. Well, he's going to become a regular member.
Okay, yeah, I'd seen that.
Yeah, okay.
That's really interesting because I've only seen 2 episodes with Brainiac 5 on the show, and when I first saw those, it seemed to me like this was just like a 2 or 3 episode arc, and they'd go away. And then as I and I dropped off, I didn't watch any more episodes, but I kept seeing references online on social media and whatnot about the Legionnaires, or at least Brainiac 5. And like I said, I thought it was this particular Brainiac 5 fan that maybe was, pushing every little bit of information out there that they could. And I wasn't sure if there was actually a lot of, real concrete information. So I'm kind of surprised to hear that he's going to become a series regular. And are they playing up the whole Brainiac 5 Supergirl relationship?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Well, that's weird. Then what? Why? Why is Brainiac 5 a regular on the show?
Well, you have to. I don't want to spoil it for you.
Okay.
You have to watch it. Or do you plan on catching up?
Yeah, eventually.
Okay.
I'm still way behind on all the Marvel Netflix shows, and hell, I haven't even seen Ant-Man and the Wasp.
It's just an embarrassment of riches.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I have no news either, so why don't we go back to feedback? Why don't we dip into feedback?
Okay.
This is from Chris, Charlton Hero, who sent us a pretty long email on episodes 7 and 8. So he has a couple of things in here that I thought might be fun to look at. And he's talking about the covers, right? We always do these comparison covers between the Baxter run and the Newsstand run. And he says here, I must tell you what I look for in a cover. To this day, my preferences include a number of criteria. I love a cool logo. The Tails logo always seems better than the Baxter updated logo. Next, I love a cover that tells me a story through either word balloons, the action on the cover, or a blurb. On issue 8 of the Baxter run, we get to save our galaxy, 5 Legionnaires must destroy a world. For example, which is missing from the Baxter cover. Oh, maybe that was the Tails cover. I love a company logo or corner box. I'm even nostalgic for UPC boxes and Comics Code Authority stamps. In 2018, I am lost in a comic shop when determining what books to buy, as 80% of books are basically a pinup with little to no context of what is in the issue. No speech balloons at all, and almost zero storytelling or indicators. What happened to the art of cover? Food for thought.
Yeah, I've had the same thoughts about recent comic covers. Mm-hmm. Exactly that. Yeah, just these pinups. There's nothing exciting about them. Nothing to promote them other than here's your character. Here's the pose this month.
I'm not sure if I agree with it that it's 80%. I feel like DC has really gone out of their way to, I'm thinking most recently like the Hal Jordan covers recently have had word balloons, number one, and situational covers as opposed to posing covers. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's across the board, but I think there was a time when comic companies were doing it a lot worse than they are now.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I was thinking, you're right about the Green Lantern stuff, but I was thinking specifically of the Catwoman #1 issue, which had her talking to us, had a word balloon on it, but it was breaking the fourth wall, telling us not to read that issue until we read Batman 50, which is a whole different animal. But yeah, I'm enjoying the slight return of word balloons on covers, because that I didn't count these things. I haven't looked back to see how many fit this category, but my recollection was in my youth that there were a lot more comic books that had word balloons on the cover.
Sure.
And seemed to be more situational, as you put it.
Yeah. He says here, I'm a fan of all things Legion headquarters. I love the membership drives. I love the leadership voting. It's to me a big reason why I love the Legion over many other supergroups. And we get a huge dose of headquarters action in these books. So win-win. And oddly enough, this today's episode on issue number 10 is about an election, although not a Legion election.
Despite the fact that they tried to tease us in that direction.
Oh, on the cover?
Yeah.
So thanks, Chris. Thanks for the email. We definitely read these emails, and it's great to have feedback on what you're listening to.
Yeah, and I'll note too that Chris and I seem to have similar tastes in regards to the Legion and similar likes about the Legion. So all that stuff that you just that you said that he wrote, I love those same things too, Chris.
I think that's probably why the Legion has. I mean, I'm going to say something that obviously, if you're a fan of Legion, you already know, but the longevity of the book is because it has built such a community around it. So like if you think of like the membership drives, people can vote on leaders. There was a huge Legion fanzine, like the Legion Outpost, right?
Oh, right.
So, and people created costumes and I don't know if they created characters, but some of their costumes appeared in the book. So it's kind of like Star Trek in that way. The fandom for Legion is really a proactive, well, it used to be, I don't know so much anymore, but it used to be really proactive.
Did you ever I'll say this, then I'll ask you the question. Speaking of costumes, making Legion costumes, I actually, when I first started working at my, where I work at now, I was learning to use Illustrator. And I designed the Ultra Boy bird-like symbol, and then eventually took that and printed onto like one of those iron-on things, press-on or whatever it is. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But I transferred it onto the T-shirt. So I found a reddish T-shirt and then put that green logo on and made my very own Ultra Boy T-shirt.
Nice.
Did you ever do anything like that?
No. I never did anything like that. Every now and then I'll randomly find a Legion Hero Clicks.
Ooh, yeah.
I used to have some Legion flight rings. I used to have the really heavy, expensive one.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah, I sold it.
Oh, man.
Yep. I'm sure I have a plastic one somewhere.
I've got 3.
Yeah. You can fly really high. But, I mean, like I said, the fandom, I guess we'll see if we ever get news on a new Legion book. We'll see just how the fandom is, see if they're really supportive. I think it's less than it used to be, but maybe a new book will help create some new readers.
Well, and if Twitter is any indication of anything, there seems to be a lot of people who really want the Legion to come back. At least are the people that I follow.
Right. Okay. Shall we jump into issue 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Issue 10, Election Day, written by Paul Levitt, Steve Lytle, and Larry Malstead, are the artists John Costanza, letterer, Carl Gafford, colorist, Karen Berger, editor, with a cover by Lytle and Malstead. Synopsis: Sunboy lights up a bedroom by saving an Earth presidential candidate, Lopit, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, from a Khundish assassin. And according to Science Police Chief Zendak, this Khundish terror team might be a diversion for an invasion force, so some legionnaires wait in space. In Yangzopolis, I love that, The Chinese candidate Liang is attacked by another Khund assassin with Invisible Kid there to stop him. Timberwolf contemplates his new assignment as executor of Karate Kid's estate, and Sensei, Karate Kid's teacher and friend, and more, volunteers to join Timberwolf's quest. It looks like Invisible Kid was probably not the best person to safeguard the presidential candidate when Invisible Kid's uncontrollable dimension-hopping ability kicks in, sending both him and the assassin into Earth orbit, killing the Khund. We find that licensing is alive and well in the 30th century in the form of a bouncing boy bouncy ball, at least that's how I took it, that is in Graham's flotation bubble as Imra and Garth deliberate how to be parents and legionnaires and wanting to do both. In Hyperbad, Wildfire protects the third candidate, Mojai. After the assassination attempts have been thwarted and no invasion force has materialized, Cosmic Boy announces his extended leave from the Legion. But wait, there's more! Those crafty Khunds intend to also snuff out the outgoing president in order to incite a war. Colossal Boy happens to be around, go figure, stops the Khund but is injured in the process. Finally, a president has been chosen, and it is Mojai, I hope I'm saying that right, the Indian candidate, but menace awaits in the form of an associate of the new president's, Vidgupta, who forgot to laugh maniacally.
Good synopsis.
Okay, so Peter, this I will say this is my first never read before issue that we've touched on so far.
Never, ever, ever.
Never read this one.
Okay. I read this one, but I don't. Yeah. I didn't remember it until I read it.
Yeah. Well, good. See, that's it. Yeah, I was wondering about that from you because, you know, in some ways this is kind of, I don't know, a ho-hum issue. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of action. There's drama, but I don't know. It is I guess what I'm really reacting to is the how much the plot does not move forward in this. I mean, it does, but it's not like, you know, there's not a lot of earth-shattering things and not a lot of, there's threat, but no result of the threat, I guess. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of, you know, overall just ho-hum.
It felt like an issue that we might have read in the 60s.
Oh, yeah. There you go. That's a good description.
Yeah. But on the surface, it's just sort of a lighthearted romp, you know, it's kind of nice. We're focusing on one plot. There's some subplots, but it's not like last issue, right? Where last issue was all about subplots.
Right.
And this one, there is a sort of like a main thrust to the issue, and you could read it kind of lighthearted, and then because we know certain things are going to happen in a year, 2 years, or whatever, I imagine, you know, if we didn't know what was going to happen, later on we would go, oh my God, remember that issue we read that kind of felt kind of empty? It actually was the beginnings of a number of things. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you know, I totally see that. You know, this is classic Levitz at work here. You know, just kind of throwing us a little bit of, well, and in some ways I thought last issue was this way too. Just throwing us a little bone of action among all the whatever's going on here. Mm-hmm. But you know, obviously with the way the issue ends, we're building up towards some other big thing now.
Right. But you're right. I mean, it's fairly a standard issue. I didn't walk away and think, I sort of felt the same, you know, like, okay, that was an issue. But I mean, even the most average issue, so far has been pretty good. I mean, there might be one or two, you know, like think of like last issue, how we came to that issue and was like, wow, this shouldn't have worked, but it did, except for that one part. Mm-hmm. And this one was like, yeah, this is a standard plot. Standard 60s, 70s style story told in the 80s. And I sort of felt the same. I was like, oh, okay. You know, we read it. We're going to talk about it. And that's probably it.
Yeah. I will add though, to the issue's benefit, I really liked the external examination of the Legion's world. You know, the election, the candidates, the issue with the Khunds, just all this stuff that's kind of coming from the outside, and the Legionnaires have to deal with it, as opposed to how insular things have been in the first, 6, 7, 8 issues.
Yeah. And there's like at least 2 odd callbacks to previous Legion stories that just made me go, or actually like 3, that I was kind of like, wow, Paul, no wonder you had to be a real Legion reader, because there's a couple of things here that if you don't know about them, it doesn't take anything away from the story. But if you do know about it, it's like, oh, wow, they're referencing so-and-so. They're referencing so-and-so. It gives it that fuller life. But there's a part of it, too, that's, I don't know, like not frustrating, but it's a lot of tickling. He does a lot of teasing and tickling of your expectations, but he does pay off. I mean, things do get paid off, so I don't know. I guess I can't really fault him for it. I enjoyed the issue. I did. I thought it was. There are a couple things I'm sure we'll talk about where I was like, I wish I would have done this or this, but yeah, I like that what you said. It's kind of like the outside looking in, and that's the part of the Legion that I like. If we go back to Chris's email, I love the huge universe, the characters, the planets, especially the planets that or the parts on Earth that are strictly Legion. You're not going to find it anywhere else but in a Legion comic. That's the stuff I love.
Yeah. Totally agree there.
Do you want to go to the covers?
Yeah. I really like this Lytle Malstedt Baxter cover a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You didn't like it?
No, I'm all Jerry Ordway Tales cover.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because I thought that was probably one of the most boring Tales covers that we've gotten so far.
Well, you thought the issue was ho-hum, so it's kind of perfect, right?
I'm nothing if not consistent.
Yeah. What do you like about the Baxter cover?
Well, talking about situational covers, we get that presidential candidates poster there with the 3 candidates, and considering the blast hole or bullet hole or whatever it is on there, it kind of tells you everything about what we're about to read. I mean, once you've read it, it's very crystal clear. Mostly though, what I like about it is, so you've got all the major characters on here, all the Legionnaires that go up against the assassins, but it's this weird translucent overlay of Wildfire and Invisible Kid. I don't know. I really dig that. It's Wildfire is blasting out of his hand, but it's coming out of the cybernetic eye of the background assassin, the Khund assassin. And Invisible Kid is turning invisible on the cover right before our very eyes, although it's just his floating head, that's kind of weird, but okay. I know. I like what Lytle's doing on the cover.
It's kind of montagey.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
But not in a typical. I don't know, not what I think of as a typical montagey way.
Right. That's the part that offends my eye a bit. I do. I love the Wildfire thing shooting out the eye of the Khund. That's great. It has election day down on the side, down the bottom, vote on the side. I don't know. My eye it really moves around, but kind of erratically.
Oh yeah, there's no sense of really flow with this thing. It's just kind of, it's very montagey. It's very jumbled. It's a mess, but for some reason it works for me.
Okay, good.
Whereas the Tails cover, which is, I mean, in many ways, it has similar qualities, you know, because you got the three superhero characters on the cover. You got the background images that basically show what's going on in the issue. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. You're gonna have to try and convince me on this one. Why is this one better?
Oh, I don't think it's better. I think it. Oh. I mean, I could say it's better, but that's opinion. I don't know. I think there's just something I like about, I guess in that, to go back to Chris's email, I mean, this cover is both a mixture of being representative of the inside and also being kind of a pinup as well, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
I'm a Jerry Ordway fan, so it's very comfortable to look at. I could recognize it even without his signature, that it's Jerry Ordway. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why I just came to that one. The Baxter one, too, a good half of it, there's nothing, like if you go from the top and there's those lines coming down, kind of like a curtain, and then the head of the Khund. I mean, the main action, the wildfire action, the center of gravity of where your eye is, it's on the bottom half of the cover. That kind of bothers me. But I get it, you know. I don't know. I like the Tails one this time around.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't dislike the other one, but when I pulled it out, I had a reaction to the Tails cover where I was like, oh, cool. I didn't even know that I forgot that it was Jerry Ordway, you know, and I think I think that helped to pick a favorite. That's right. You don't have to agree all the time.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
I did say in my notes though, Peter, you'd think Jerry Ordway would have done a better job.
Oh my God. How dare you? Blasphemy.
I'm just fighting words, huh?
Yeah.
I've seen him do some wonderful covers and I just don't think that
sure.
was one of them.
Yeah, it's not in the top 10. It's probably not even in the top 50. Yeah. It is interesting that both wildfire poses sort of look the same.
That's true.
Yeah.
And since we're just pointing out the commonalities, Wildfire and Invisible Kid sort of are kind of looking in the same direction in both covers, which is, you know, kind of weird that they're looking from the left to the right. I don't know. It was a strange, or I don't know. Maybe did Ordway look at this cover and go, okay, that's I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different, or I don't know.
I would think so. If I was an artist, I would do that.
Mm-hmm. So as not to accidentally at least replicate what the other artist did.
Right. Yeah. So we gave our overall thoughts. We talked about the we argued about the cover. No. What did you think of the way they pick presidents?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's go big.
You want to? Okay. Cause that was actually that whole part. This whole election thing on 30th century Earth is what fascinated me the most about this issue.
Right.
And maybe it's because, well, it's not because of that. I was going to say, in large part, maybe it's because we have a midterm election coming up in the United States here pretty soon. Although I'm pretty political myself, and I think that voting is a right and responsibility that no one here in the States, no American citizen should ever take lightly. So, you know, this is just weird to me. The politics of the 30th century is like, what the heck is this?
And for those people who maybe didn't read the issue, there is a computer called the World Comp that picked 3 candidates. They have 1 day to campaign, and then the people vote. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So the World Comp kind of reminded me of the computer or whatever it was in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You know,
right. Okay.
The answer to life, the universe, and everything. and all that. So I don't know. It just, it doesn't really, it has no real connection to it. It just, my mind went there. But my first thought was, what kind of algorithm did they write for this computer that it would be able to pick nominees, as they say in the issue, based on skill, competency, and decency. Decency. How do you write code to pick out what is decent? That's just I couldn't imagine that ever being done. We humans are so complex.
Hey, I mean, there'll be times where I'll be talking on the phone to my girlfriend about something, and then when we're done, I go and go on Facebook or Instagram, and there's an ad based on something that came up in the conversation.
Oh, you too?
Yeah. And this is 1,000 years in the future, so
that's
maybe
true.
Maybe
that's true.
I don't know.
Yeah, but it was just so weird to see that. And think about one. We complain here in the States about it used to be like a few months of campaigning, especially in a presidential election year. Mm-hmm. And now it seems to be like 2 years of campaigning. The president barely gets into office and they suddenly are campaigning for the next 4 years, 2 years early. It's crazy. One day they have to campaign for all of the world, I assume, to pick out of one person out of 3 candidates based on their skill, competency, and decency. I mean, how? And it's a surprise to them. They didn't even know until the day that they are going to start campaigning. I mean, that's really the weird part, is that it's like, well, here you go, surprise! You're now possibly going to be president. Go campaign, and people will vote on you.
Wouldn't you love that though? A one-day campaign.
Well, yeah. But I think we come at it from the standpoint, like I said, we have so many days to form our opinions about these candidates that we're going to vote on, months down the road. So it seems very easy to say that, if they only campaign one day, we would have formulated an opinion, or I don't know. But for these, like I said, these poor people who are surprised at this nomination, then to have to go out and, I don't know, sell themselves to the world at large. So bizarre.
I did love that he goes right in. It's a Mexican, a Chinese, and an Indian.
Yes, I noted that too.
That's great. We already had Marty Allen, who's a Jewish American, and Paul Levitz is like, nope, this is what the world comp has chosen. And so what's the girl's name?
Liang.
She's also young. She's a student. So it's not even that they're picking on age or anything, like you said. She's a young girl that could have been. I thought that was interesting too. And there was a part of me that felt like, when in the old Legion days, when they used to pick a leader by using that planetary machine that just spun around, and the first planet that fell off of the machine and hit somebody in the head, they were the leader. Do you remember that?
Oh my God! Here I am complaining about the World Comp decision, and yeah, there's that.
How awesome would that be?
Oh my God!
It's kind of, I think, was it George Carlin who said, they should drop a monkey from a plane, and the first person that the monkey goes to, that's the president, or something like that. It's sort of that random.
Yeah.
But I liked the candidates, and I liked that Paul Levitz gave them very distinct personalities, and that they were from very distinct places.
Yes.
That was awesome. That was great.
Yeah, and we got 3, maybe 4 pages of them in the issue, maybe even less. I'm trying to think of Liang, how much she appears in here, and yeah, how much they Levitz and Lytle and everybody infused into these personalities. I don't know about you, Peter. I would have voted for Liang.
Oh,
based on what I saw here.
right.
And I was really disappointed when she didn't win. Because, like I said, I keep harping on the whole decency aspect of the triad of criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Given what we see at the end of the issue with the Indian candidate, I kind of think that the World Cup, didn't quite work as well. Or as with any election, people respond however they respond to picking a candidate. And but I feel like Majai maybe isn't as decent as Leung for sure. I don't really get a sense of candidate Lopit. Is that how you would say it?
I think so. Yeah.
Lopit. But I was really disappointed that we did not get candidate Leung picked as president.
I wish we would have gotten a little bit of their campaign.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That was one of my, I guess, major complaints of the issue was, and I realize that's not the focus of this story, but all this build up, all the drama around it, and yet we totally skipped that whole day's worth of campaigning, and it really highlighted to me that I often forget about the compressed storytelling that we used to get in comics compared to kind of what we get today. Where, so this plot, if it were done today, that would be a whole trade's worth of plot, drawn out over 5 or 6 issues before we'd find out who the new president was.
So if we look at the timeline of when this issue was created, the cover date is May of 85. So normally a comic comes out 2 to 3 months prior to the cover date. So we could think February maybe this was released, right? I think it was in February that it was released, which means they might have been working on this when? In October of 84, maybe November of 84.
Mm-hmm.
Right around Reagan's second election win.
Yep.
So and the one comment that made me feel like, oh, right, this was created during an election year was when we got to Jim Allen's family in Boston. Colossal Boy and the former president, Marty Allen. And they say here, Yira says, this election looks to be a close one. And Jim says, they usually are here on Earth. We tend to be a passionate planet about our politics. And then Yira says, then it is a good thing you have few elections, is it not? And his mom says, better than you could dream, Yira. When I read, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
When I read that, I thought, oh yeah, what, 1985? Wait a minute. So it made me look it up. I had to look it up, and then I realized, yeah, right. That was when January of 85 was when Reagan started his second term.
Mm-hmm. Imagine what kind of reaction you as Paul Levitz now writing this issue would be based on current political climate.
Oh, yeah. Tell me Mojai is, when I read, tell me you didn't think of our current maniac.
That's why I brought up the whole decency thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, people say, oh, comics shouldn't be political. I mean, this comic is political. And I was like, whoa, Levitz. I mean, the whole thing of, first of all, he's sort of boisterous. He's rich. He lives in a golden floating city,
mm-hmm.
Like a golden tower, sort of,
Mm-hmm.
He's surrounded by his family that just looks like they're straight out of a reality show. And he keeps talking about, that whole thing about decency. He keeps talking about, where does he say it? My family have been leaders of our people since the forgotten days of caste, which is, that's something in the Indian culture that they don't want to think about, even though it might still be around. Look at the wealth, the comfort we have given them.
Given to them.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's a braggart. He's, and then when he does win at the end, it's like a party, and, welcome to what remains of my humble home. Come, toast my victory. Shall I not be a splendid president of Earth? And I was like, oh my God, this guy. Yeah, that was crazy as I was reading it, and as I'm sure you reacted to, where I was like, oh my God.
The parallels I can't believe a comic that I read, over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Is just, the parallels are just crazy.
Yeah. And we're going to see him.
He even has a blonde trophy wife here.
Yeah. Crazy. We'll see him a lot, and we'll certainly see Vid Gupta. In fact, even though we're not talking about the Tales book, the Tales 323, did you read that one?
Mm-hmm.
He's in it. He's in it at the end, in the last couple pages, and we get his last name of Desai when Brainiac goes to talk to him. So I thought, wow, that's how you know these books really are interconnected.
And there was in issue 15's letter column about issue 10, there was a person here. Oh, T.M. Maple, actually. I just noticed that. The Mad Maple.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Talking about the election system. No matter how developed a person's own views are, it takes time to come up with a cohesive policy plan for a particular elected office. This would mean that the voter's decision would have to be made largely on the basis of the person, not the policy. And so that, that's articulating well what I could not earlier about the whole one-day campaigning thing.
It's almost like the way this is a general statement, but the way they pick the cities to host the Olympics, where they kind of know there's a few cities they're going to pick, and then they just announce the city. It felt a little like that, where, I don't know, I would like to think that I would pick a person based on what they said,
mm-hmm.
and a vibe that I would get, I even tried to think of it in terms of a popularity contest. One thing I thought that was interesting, so when we go to, what's her name again? I keep forgetting her name.
Liang,
thank you. When we go to Liang in China, it's Yangtzeopolis.
Yes.
Right. So the idea that this city has become large enough to become a metropolis, and I know that that's kind of a thing about 30th century metropolis, is that it's gotten so big that it might have absorbed several states. So it's not just like a big city in New York or wherever, but metropolis in the 30th century is Superman's metropolis, but it's also probably gotten so big that it's absorbed Philly and Gotham and Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm.
And I love that that's what they're doing with this as well.
Yes. Yeah. I had the same reaction.
Yeah. So part of me was thinking, Mexico and China and India, these are huge populated areas. And if it came down to like a popularity contest, who wins? Maybe that's why it became, maybe that's why it was, the outcome was the way it was. I don't know.
Well, and that totally makes sense in terms of who was chosen as candidates. If population centers have any kind of sway in the algorithm,
Mm-hmm.
Although Wildfire does say candidate Lopit is from Acapulco, or is in Acapulco. So how big is that? Whatever city that is, similar to Yangzopolis or Metropolis.
Yeah. Well, but maybe because it's maybe if you think of the country that it's in, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Khunds. The Khunds that are on attack. We get basically they're trying to do this. I almost felt like they were holding their own kind of election in a weird way, because the one that goes after Colossal Boy's family says his name is Kidrak, right? And he hits everybody. He sort of wipes them out a little bit. Your presence at your mother's side was anticipated, Colossal Boy, and neutralized. With your powers temporarily removed, you are no threat to Kidrak, and that means our party of honor has won. And then he goes on to say, there will be war between your people and mine, a war in which much glory can be won. No debates or diplomats or warlords, just the corpse of your president as we threatened, and surely the war must begin. I just didn't know what he meant by party of honor.
Yeah.
I thought maybe in a weird way, each of the Khunds, if they had to go kill a candidate, and maybe if they killed a candidate of Earth, they become a candidate, or they become the overlord or whatever it is for. I just thought that was weird. What did you make of that of anything? No,
not really. Not in terms of what you just described. I mostly took it as party's the weird word here. If it were some sort of, if you take party in a different sense, it's their party. The four Khunds. You say Khund, I say Khund. I'm not sure which one is more correct, but they're the party. They're the party of four, and this is in a weird, if you think about the Klingons from Star Trek, mm-hmm. who are all about honor. And I don't know if Levitz was totally riffing on that, or if it's just a coincidence. But I've always equated the Khunds with the Klingons in my mind, and so I was that. I'm bringing a lot of my own baggage here into this, but I took it to mean to start this war. That's an honorable thing to them to start this war and win it, to show their superiority over the United Federation of no, I just said Star Trek. The United Planets. Thank you. Then they would regain their honor. In some weird way, even though they have to do this underhanded surprise attack and murder people. I don't understand how that's honorable, but anyway.
Yeah, it was just a weird little bit of dialogue.
It was. That one word to me is just totally calls into question everything that we're reading here in terms of what they're trying to accomplish and why, other than their stated goal, which is to start a war. And if that's their goal, then I mean, why not just invade? If you want to start a war by killing the other side's president, and not only the current president, but all of the candidates that could become president, and I presume the World Comp can just pick 3 more people afterwards if they were all dead, the initial ones. It was weird. Why would the Khunds approach it this way? It just seems kind of haphazard and not well thought out. I don't understand the motivation other than just to start a war, but there are other ways to start wars. So it was weird.
And the Legion even says, prior to that scene, I don't think it was an invasion, Cosmic Boy. And Shrinking Violet says the Khunds don't have the power for that or the guts. Phantom Girl says, don't be so sure. They've been openly hostile for a long time now. Shrinking Violet says, but without causing much trouble. And then Phantom Girl says, depends on your perspective. Look at the circles they've had us flying in. So maybe it was a feint. Maybe they got maybe they got a little smarter, but not really. I don't know.
Yeah. Or to bring it into current event examples, are the Khunds the I'm gonna get in trouble for saying these things maybe, but the Russians, poking and prodding and testing the waters, invading certain areas of neighboring countries to see what the reaction is. But that all just kind of falls away for me anyway, though, because of what that particular assassin says. That their goal is to start a war with United Planets, or at least with Earth.
And we're not really talking about Vidgupta, and we maybe should throw that into the mix. So here's a delicate topic. First of all, do you know who he is, right?
Yes, I do know that.
Do we say it now in case there are some readers who don't know, or do we wait?
Let's wait.
Okay, because clearly you don't end an issue, a very chaotic issue, with a guy who's only in 2 panels and not go, okay, did he benefit from the chaos, or was he part of the chaos?
Yes, exactly.
And I don't remember, and I don't think we even ever get an answer to that. But
no, see, now if we don't, I'll be disappointed again. Because it would totally make sense if Vidgupta hired these assassins under false pretenses. Well, and letting them think it's about one thing when really it's about another, to manipulate events. Although, yeah,
he would have had to.
Yeah,
he would have had to manipulate the WorldCom.
Exactly. Yes. Not to mention, I mean, if Wildfire hadn't been there, would he have stepped in with the assassin that attacked his candidate?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's the logic kind of starts to break down the more we examine this.
I know.
Based on the information that we have.
Right. And I'm also trying to base it on information that I know, which is also wrong, because that's not fair, because that's not information that we really have yet as a reader of issue 10. So, yeah. All right. Well, I guess if listeners don't know, they should pay attention to that guy.
I kind of think, yeah, as you say, ending the issue with this guy with that twinkle in his eye on that last panel. I mean, if that's not a dead giveaway, at the very least, not necessarily who this person is, but that he's certainly someone to watch. Right.
And I don't think Levitz keeps that a mystery for too long. I don't think. I think we actually get that information before. Well, I'm not sure now that I say that. I'll shut up. I don't remember. I did want to point out the Khunds, though. Khunds. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. They keep referencing, and so do the Legionnaires, a battle that they had with another Khund named Karlak.
Yes.
Although there's so many spelling differences, from Legion of Superheroes 298 and 299, where there was and I didn't go back and read it, but I just flipped through it. And that Khund went up against Invisible Kid and Wildfire and he got his ass handed to him by White Witch. So it was interesting that they referenced that, not only I think it was the second Khund that referenced it, and then Wildfire even said, "Oh, I'm gonna use you to pay back the guy that caused me trouble way back." So I thought that was kind of cool that Levitz again is dipping back into his own stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly creates a sense of continuity that I think a lot of us Legion lovers really like.
Yeah.
Otherwise, these Khunds are pretty much your typical shoot first, don't really talk version of bad guys that we've seen before.
I love them though. I don't know why. I just think they're funny.
I kind of think that's what he's going for. He says, they're a bit of a threat, but not really, and they are kind of comical in their bravado. Ultimately, they lose every time they go up against the Legion, but I guess who doesn't? But yeah, they're not a joke, but man, they're really skirting that line all the time.
Yeah. It was weird that Levitz dipped back into Invisible Kid having these other powers. Because I swear when you read that Tales issue where Invisible Kid and Wildfire went to that dream dimension, the Dream Demon, whatever his name was, he said he was doing that.
That's right.
And now we get another instance where Invisible Kid is creating portals to some weird limbo, and then he can teleport, and he teleports the Khund to space, and that's how he defeats the Khund. That was weird to me. I don't know. I was kind of like, wait a minute.
But wasn't that the adversary of that issue that you mentioned? While his scheme didn't come to fruition, it wasn't like he was killed or anything. So my sense of the issue that I remember was that he was presented as a threat that would return. And so is that what this really is? Or is it just Levitz going or forgetting that he set that up and is like, oh yeah, Invisible Kid has this new ability that is uncontrollable. Let's play with that. Yeah. And I don't see how it fits into Invisible Kid's character and story and journey. And that's weird. Irritating me. Yeah, it's irritating me because I'm like, wait a minute. So we'll have to keep track on that. What other stuff did you have about the issue? Let's see here. I thought, since we're talking a lot about the Khunds, I thought Starboy's dismissal of the Khunds' actions really seemed naive. And you mentioned some of the reactions of the Legionnaires earlier. But coming at it from a post 9/11 outlook, I just took that. It was what Starboy says, and I'll have to find that real quick as I'm talking. But I thought it was just really, like I said, it's naive. But it also goes in line with the Legion's response to the Legion of Supervillains from the first storyline, where I complained, I think probably too much, about how the Legion was not taking the Legion of Villains seriously enough. And I got the same vibe here from Starboy, who says, Chameleon Boy says, theory is it might be a diversion for an invasion force. And Starboy very, forcefully says, not my theory, Chameleon Boy, like he has, like he's an expert in intergalactic politics. I think the Khunds are just making trouble, not war. You mentioned that before. I don't know. That just rubbed me the wrong way, I guess. That, again, through Starboy as a representative, the Legion doesn't seem to be taking the threat as serious as I think they should. Although, to be fair, they are out in space waiting just in case it comes. Right. So at least, I take it back, here at least a few members aside, perhaps, the Legion they're learning from past mistakes or something. Yeah. Well, it was interesting. If you follow through on that dialogue, then Element Lad says, I tend to agree, Starboy, but we're obliged to listen to Chief Zendek. And Dream Girl says, if you say so, Element Lad, you're the leader. And then he says, don't be snide, Dream Girl. If you want to run against me in our next election, that's your privilege. Until then, I'll expect your cooperation. So there might be some discord about how the Legion is being used. So maybe some of that is coming into play. Because Element Lad feels like the kind of leader that, yes, if Chief Zendek said you got to do this, he's going to do it. He's by the books.
He doesn't think outside the box the way Dream Girl would. And it did kind of make me feel like I give a lot of the other characters grief when they pick on Dream Girl, but this time I was like, okay, Dream Girl, relax. She's very confrontational with people who are leaders. And I almost wondered if this was, I don't think this plays out into anything, but it made me, the note that I wrote about it was, is there a part of her that is feeling really horrible that her powers weren't able to show her that Karate Kid was going to die? Because she was the one who had the premonition, and she fainted a couple times, right? She goes, oh my God, a Legionnaire is going to die. So, and ever since then, she's just been real testy, and I kind of always put it on the other people, especially Wildfire. But I thought that comment was kind of her questioning Element Lad's leadership and his decision to follow Chief Zendek. But, the Legion, they're part of the government. I mean, they even say it either last issue or this issue where I think it was this issue. Wasn't it this issue? Where Marty says, I hope the president is I only hope the next president is open-minded about the Legion. Your friends did good work today, Jim. So, I mean, like, there's obviously some official capacity that they have, and part of that probably means that when the chief of the science police says, hey, jump, you got to say how high. But she doesn't like that. So I thought that whole sequence was a very interesting insight into the Legion and how they react to a government kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how the way you read her dialogue, because the way that one particular word is emphasized here in the word balloon, I read it as if, well, I'll just read it. If you say so, Element Lad, you're the leader. And I just got a lot more sass from her.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of interaction, I guess, between them, those two characters. And this is not the first time that we've seen her do that with Element Lad. Probably not, maybe not to this degree, but last issue when they were, I guess it wasn't between her and Element Lad. It was between her and Wildfire.
Yeah.
But she seemed rather testy. But like you said, she seems to react more against Wildfire than others, perhaps.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Invisible Kid, this thing that happened with his powers, and there was an interesting parallel between that and what happened in the last couple Tales issues, because Dawnstar accidentally kills someone as well. Mm-hmm. So, within just a couple months of these issues, we get 2 Legionnaires accidentally killing 2 adversaries. Right. And I'm like, that's just a weird, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but it's weird that it happened so close together in publishing continuity. And then, my first thought is, because I'm trying to remember, no, I'm getting the two storylines mixed up, but Element Lad says something to Invisible Kid this issue about, well, let's calm down, let's figure out what exactly happened and see if you've violated the election code or Legion code.
Right.
And so I imagine they would do the same thing with Dawnstar as well. So then what's the fallout of that? And do we get to see that? My sense is we don't, because they're still around.
Yeah, and I think most readers would probably go, there's no violation there. I mean, that was an accident.
Yeah, they were very very clearly presented as not intentional events. So yeah, but it's just, like I said, it was just weird that we get 2 very similar situations.
Should we talk about Timberwolf? We get a continuation from last issue where he has to execute some task based on Karate Kid's will that apparently was written prior to his marriage. And because Princess Projectora, Queen Projectora, took Orlando to another place and time, that left behind an estate or shares in an estate that is basically unclaimed, and that's why that's part of the will. And Timberwolf is about ready to make a lot of moolah if he does a task, which we still don't know what it is. But so last issue he went to Tokyo. This issue he's in Tokyo and meets up with Sensei, a character that has been connected with Karate Kid. It's his teacher. So in the recap, you sort of alluded to his word balloon about what does he say?
I was his teacher, yeah, and friend, and more.
Right. Do you know what that's referencing?
I don't actually. I just thought it was weird.
He was Karate Kid's kind of like a surrogate father.
Right.
So, I love my research. I went back to, he apparently only had a few appearances prior to this issue.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was Adventure Comics 367, which was an issue we already talked about about the controllers, because that's the issue that gave us the Miracle Machine. But he's in that. Karate Kid goes to Japan, and that's the first time you see Sensei, and you realize that was Karate Kid's master. He even says something interesting in that issue. Sensei says, "Here, I'm going to give you one last test," and Karate Kid passes it, and the Sensei says, "Great. When my time is done, you'll be ready to find and train someone for in your stead," or something like that. Like he's like, now you're ready to pass on these abilities to someone else, which I thought was interesting. But then his second appearance was from Superboy 210 from August of 1975, and I just had to read the synopsis because I didn't have this issue. It was an origin story for Karate Kid by Jim Shooter and Mike Grell, and in it, you learn that when Sensei was younger, he went up against this guy named Black Dragon, killed him, whether it was accidentally or not, and then realized that guy had a son, and the son was Karate Kid. So Sensei killed Karate Kid's dad in a duel, told Karate Kid that his mother, who was an American, had also died shortly after his birth. And that's why Mike Grell used to draw Karate Kid looking almost like Bruce Lee, because he was half Asian, half American. And then Karate Kid turns on him and says, "It's okay. I never knew my father, but I did know you. You were like my father." So I think that's where that comes from.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I vaguely recall that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd totally forgotten that aspect. So yeah, that and more thing was just took me to a place that I should not have gone.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting though that he's saying to Timberwolf, look, if you don't want to do it, I'll do it. I'll take up. It's a great burden. Or if the burden is too great, I would lift it from you. I'll carry it on my weary shoulders in the hope that greater responsibility would help me reach my destiny. And I was thinking, or you want the money, but no.
Yeah. What didn't he? I mean, based on what you just told us, didn't he already reach his destiny by training Karate Kid? What else is there for him to do?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just making this quest out to be a little bit more than perhaps it really should be. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that issue though, because I don't think. No, I read it, but I don't remember a lot about it, and it'll be kind of nice to put the Timberwolf story to bed.
I'm looking forward to what it might be because I'm kind of sick of this whole Timberwolf is dumb,
right?
Depiction that we've been seeing these last, I don't know, several issues, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never my recollection of late 70s, early 80s Legion stuff that I read, Timberwolf was never dumb. He was introverted. He was, very internal to himself, which was always a consternation to Lightlass because he was, moody. But he was never depicted as below average intelligence, which he seems to be accused of a lot by some of his own team members.
Yeah,
and I just don't like it.
I think it's interesting that the character that could very well have been the Wolverine of the DC universe in the 80s is this sort of sensitive wallflower almost.
Another thing I wanted to point out in this issue, much like the politics, the whole idea of religion in this issue, it's not overt, definitely not as overt as the politics involved, but I really liked the depiction of religion being alive and well on Earth. But Levitz puts it in there, kind of subtly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Candidate Lopet wears a cross. Of course, I'm heavily inferring there based on that, but Invisible Kid says, I don't know how to. I don't speak French. I don't know how to speak French. But he says, he exclaims at one point, "Le bon Dieu, preserve me."
Mm-hmm.
I might be inferring a little too much. But then, as you mentioned earlier, Jim and his family is Jewish. Now, this is not the first time we've seen that depicted or mentioned in Legion comics, but the fact that we get that a little bit here in this issue, a few characters anyway, maybe being a little more religious than we've ever seen before in these comics. I just liked how we get a future sort of utopian depiction of religion. Normally we don't. Religion seems to be something that is, like in Star Trek, for example, we've moved beyond religion. And I thought it was interesting that Levitz is tossing this in here a little bit, which I think would remain to some degree in the future, regardless of how many centuries passes. I think humanity tends to want to believe in something higher than themselves. And so it makes sense that we have a little bit of religious viewpoints here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so
a good cat.
We get politics and religion, two things you're never supposed to talk about in polite company in one issue.
That's funny. The rest of the stuff I have is kind of just surfacey stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we should talk about Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl and their baby. I guess it's in direct counterpart to what Cosmic Boy says, right? We didn't even talk about that. So Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl are questioning, they're still on leave, but what are they going to do when they come back? And as you said in the synopsis, Cosmic Boy decides to finally announce that he's taking a leave of absence and has plans about other things as well, which I don't know what that is. But so that was kind of interesting that we're watching the founders slowly make their way away from the team. Yeah,
it's I think I said this last time or whenever we talked about the Cosmic Boy's announcement before, it's just like I'm very uncomfortable with this situation. I don't like that much change. Mostly it's just Cosmic Boy. I don't care about Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad all that much.
It was awesome though that she was in the pink bikini. That was great.
Yeah, and Lightning Lad's I was just there. He's got that belt buckle. I mean, these guys are so into themselves. Jim, if you look at Jim, Colossal Boy, when he's just hanging out with his parents and his wife, he's wearing an outfit that's reminiscent of his early outfit, Legion outfit.
Yeah.
It's just, I love those touches from the artist, but just if you're looking at it in universe, it's very strange that they decide to wear these things that are like their costume or some version of their costume
or a symbol.
Yeah,
I like that though, because I feel like the Legion around this time there's a celebrity quality to it, and certainly Sunboy is all over that. And I like that, and I think we got that in the 5 years later as well. Like, there's a status to being a Legionnaire. I mean, they have that giant headquarters in the middle of Metropolis. It's not like they're secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of dig that. I mean, I think the bikini thing is just funny because that's what everybody called it for a long time. And yes, it absolutely makes sense that it should be worn in the water. Yeah, I love that. But like Colossal Boy's coloring, or like last issue where we talked about how some of their normal outfits were reflective of their costumes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I sort of think I would be like that too. I'd be very flamboyant if I was.
Yeah, I make that complaint, and yet, I wear superhero styled T-shirts all the time.
You just talked about you made a Ultra Boy shirt.
You were exactly right. See, so I'm not one to talk here.
Yeah.
On that Cosmic Boy scene, there's something I just wanted to touch on. Cosmic Boy announces his extended leave. You mentioned the several changes that he references. And then Phantom Girl says, "Huh? What do you mean, Cos? Oh, you'll find out in due time, Phantom Girl. I wouldn't want to ruin the surprise." And then there's that panel on page 19 where she, puts her palm to her forehead and goes, "A tease, all these years we've known each other, and now you're turning into a tease? Ouch." And everybody goes, "Ha, ha, ha, ha." I'm like, what the hell was that?
I like that moment. I like that. It was like showing the Legion camaraderie. I like that.
That's very true, but at the same time, it just seemed so over the top, very sitcom-y.
Yeah, yeah.
But I guess that's what this book is. It's very much a sitcom romance, sitcom type book. So
yeah. I
guess it's playing to its roots. It just seemed like a weird thing that they would have that exchange, and everybody would just laugh so much about it. It's just weird.
I wonder because Giffen's really good at that, and I wonder if that might have played differently with his sensibility.
Mm.
And some of it, I mean, I love my Phantom Girl, and she used to have a crush on Superboy? Was it her that had the crush on Superboy, or was that Triplicate?
I think so. Well, no, yeah, you're right. Triplicate Girl did.
Yeah.
Shadowlass did.
I don't know. I used to always think, I mean, Phantom Girl always seems like the go-go girl. She always seemed like the 60s girl, and I thought that was it was cute because it sort of made me feel like she's been on the team just as long as Duo Damsel, Triplicate Girl, and the Founders. Those are the first 5 members. So it makes me feel like she probably always had this secret crush on him, but was like, oh no, I can't say anything because Cosmo, he's the leader and he's the founder and he's rock, right? He's a rock. And so it's like, she's like, oh, now. It's kind of like when I was in high school, some girl came up to me and she was like, "Oh yeah, in junior high school, I used to have such a crush on you." I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me then?"
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking because I couldn't remember any issue that I read in the past where it was even suggested that Phantom Girl had some sort of crush on Cosmic Boy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that we need that, but it's just, it was just odd. And then there's Ultra Boy in one panel. I just turned away from it. Oh yeah, in the second panel on that page where this is just after Cosmic Boy has announced his extended leave, and if you look at Ultra Boy's face, he's crushed. He looks almost sad. I just thought that was a nice touch. I never really associated Ultra Boy with being like, close friends with Cosmic Boy.
Right.
But Ultra Boy seems to be I don't know, representing the overall feel for this situation. Maybe I'm just projecting onto Joe in this case. But no, I mean, clearly the art shows him as being very concerned, and that's another praise for Lytle and Malstead for depicting the emotion that way.
Yeah.
And then just one more thing on the art I'll mention. I loved the way on page 1 how they drew Candidate Lopet. Just this normal guy among these superheroic characters. I mean, look at Sunboy there with his muscly arms, and going up against the Khund assassin. It's just this kind of normal looking dude. Not wearing a shirt. He's got that cross. That's where is that a cross? Is that a cross or a?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a cross. Okay. He's just a normal looking middle-aged dude. And it's not something you see a whole lot in I think Legion comics for sure, but comics in general. I just thought it was a nicely done picture.
It's a great opening splash page for the story.
Oh yeah.
Just the artwork of it, the placement of it all. Yeah. It's a very well done opening page. Yeah, I thought the artwork, we haven't really talked about it, but again, the artwork is good. Great storytelling, great panel layout. It's coloring, all of it. It's a really attractive book to read.
Yeah, definitely. We've talked about how well Lytle's been doing on the book. That he's certainly hit his stride with this book at this point. I wanted to go back to the letter column referencing this issue.
Mm-hmm.
There was, besides the politics one, there was a couple other letters that I responded to when I was reading through these. You have another reader talking about the lack of mourning in the team about Karate Kid's death, and another one who complained about how poorly perhaps they depicted that candidate Mojai actually won. I didn't get that sense. I wasn't confused by that at all, but apparently some people were. And then there's another one, another reader who complained bitterly about too much romance in this book. And I thought, haven't you been reading this book for any length of time? I mean, that's what the Legion in part is really about. All this romance between the characters.
Yeah, they're teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah, 30th century teenagers.
Right.
Which according to one Bronze Age story, that could be that they're in their late 20s and they're still considered teenagers.
Oh, right.
And then finally on that, Paul Levitz is kind of a saint in a way because, people write in and they're complaining. And I know you don't want to piss off your audience too much, but he's very accommodating and seemingly appreciative of the critique that he's getting. And oftentimes I've noticed in these letter column responses, he will say, you know what, that's a good idea. We might touch on that later. Yeah. Which I would think they would not want to go there just because, unsolicited ideas to a company like DC tend to be frowned upon because, someone could, sue you down the road. You stole my idea.
Maybe because they're putting it out in public though. Yeah,
that's true. You're right. I just thought it was nice, this guy who's writing this book, and he is also, at this time, he's also an executive vice president of the company.
Oh, yeah.
So, he's taken the time and I think being very sincere in his responses to his readership. And I just thought that was actually kind of refreshing.
In the letter column in issue 10, after one of the letters, he's I guess they were talking about Keith Giffen. He says, next month a 4-issue Ambush Bug miniseries begins. plotted and penciled by Keith with dialogue by Bob Fleming and inks by Bob Oxner. And that's that, or it says, it may be the funniest and most dangerous miniseries DC has ever published. And that's that great 4-issue Ambush Bug miniseries that is just hysterical, funny, pokes fun at everybody. Oh, it's so good. And like I said, it's the first 4-issue miniseries that Ambush Bug gets, and then he'll get like a 6-issue miniseries and a Christmas issue and another issue, and then years later, during the Dan DiDio era, he'll get another miniseries. Oh, I love Ambush Bug.
Well, they even did a Showcase Presents Black and White collection of all of Ambush Bug's appearances.
Yeah.
It just shows you how much DC thinks the character is worth or worthy of attention.
Oh yeah, I mean he was Harley Quinn and Deadpool and Lobo and whoever. He was all those characters way before they were even thought of.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
And then the next issue blurb looks like we're getting another kind of like standalone wrap-up kind of story. And then a second story, Keith Giffen's coming back, The Origin of Comic Queen.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be fun.
Yeah, I like Comic Queen. She's, even despite the whole Valley Speak aspect of her, I've always enjoyed that character, and especially the way her look.
Right.
It's so different. So I like that. I even actually in some superhero fiction of my own, I wrote a character called Comet Girl, and I always had Comet Queen in mind as the inspiration for that particular character.
Very cool. Okay, we're going to put that one to sleep. Put that to bed.
All right.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the next issue?
You mean what we're going to talk about for this episode? Yeah. So listeners, we're going to do something kind of fun, hopefully. So every time these books, we read these books, I always look at what else has come out at that point in case there's another Legion story we might want to talk about. For instance, with this issue 10, DC had just released Crisis number 2 around the same time. And I forgot to mention last episode that they had released Crisis number 1. So Crisis on Infinite Earths, the big crossover in 1985, right? Dawnstar played the most prominent part in issue 1. And in issue 2, we got appearances from other Legion of Superhero members who were looking for Dawnstar, and they have a short little scene with the Legionnaires. That's the reason why we talked about DC Comics Presents. I mean, not only because it was a continuation of that story, but it came out that same month. So what's also coming out at this time is DC's popular Who's Who in the DC Universe. Is that what it's called? No, it's called something.
The Definitive Directory of the DC Universe.
There you go. And at this point, we're up to issue number 3. So I thought it might be fun to just kind of read the entries that had to do with the Legion of Superheroes, as they relate to the same month that whatever issue we're reading. So issues 1 and 2 didn't have anybody, that I saw that was Legion related, but issue 3 has quite a number. So Eric and I read the entries on Block, Bouncing Boy, Brainiac 5, and then I also threw in there Brainiac because there was some kind of relation, but not much. And I thought, we're not going to go into detail. We're not going to read every little word to you. You can go read it yourself. It doesn't matter. We're not going to read like, oh, they first appeared here and they're 5'6" and blah, 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 blah. They have yellow hair, whatever. I just thought it might be fun to read the Who's Who entries and see if there's anything that stuck out. And, especially because the information on these entries can only go so far at this time.
Right. Because they wouldn't want to give away what's about to happen in Crisis for sure.
Right. Or they didn't know, and again,
Right.
it's only 1985. So these are who these characters are at this point. So I thought that was interesting. So as I said, Block, Bouncing Boy, Brainiac 5, and to some degree Brainiac. So what kind of thoughts did you have, Eric?
Mostly I responded to the art, on these, for these entries.
Okay.
I told Peter before we started recording, I really, really loved the Steve Lytle Block entry, just because it's done so well. In fact, Block here, Peter, to me is, I don't know, it looks like Lytle took his time with this pinup of the character. He looks, I don't know, kind of better. I don't know how else to put it than he does in the Legion book itself. And then, did you notice the 3 different costumes they show here?
Mm-hmm.
In this particular entry, including one that I think we barely even saw in an issue, which is the chains that he's wearing around his chest.
Right.
In fact, I don't even, the one that they're showing him in and as the main costume, or, the main image that he is with the shoulder pads and the wrestler midriff thing. I don't know how to describe these things. Did we even see him wearing that?
No, this is new.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that was one of the goals of Who's Who, was to sometimes show the first time you would see like an updated costume. And we talked about last issue that we got the first appearance of Tellus, who would be a future Legionnaire. And Paul Levitz mentioned in some letter column that Steve Lytle was the kind of artist that just created things. And I wonder if maybe he was like, who needs a new costume? Block. And maybe he created it. Maybe this is a Steve Lytle design. And they said, great, let's show it in Who's Who for the first time. So I think that's why we're getting the new costume look here. And I have to imagine it's going to show up. Now, what I'm curious is to see if it's going to show up in Crisis first, or if it's going to show up in the Baxter run.
Ah, okay. Now that you said Crisis, that rings a bell to me for this particular look, but I honestly don't remember.
What I love about his entry is under the powers and weapons. They say here, as a Legionnaire, he has completed personal combat training as adapted to his physiology with undistinguished results.
Yeah. I mean, when you're a guy that is basically a humanoid mountain, I mean, there's not a lot that you need to do in terms of combat.
Right.
Except, be able to smash things and stand there. I think Brainiac 5's entry also says something along those lines.
Yeah.
Which totally makes sense for him.
Yeah, that's the one that says his personal... I have to get it because it's pretty funny. And these are the kind of things I mean when we're going to look through it. Like, it just... Little things like this are kind of funny. He has completed personal combat training inattentively.
Yes. Which totally makes sense.
Right. It does make me go back to Block, though. All these characters have to have one particular power, one unique power. So what is Block's power? What is it that sets himself apart from the other Legionnaires? Or when he joined the Legion, did they kind of forget that part?
Yeah, I've always actually been very curious about that because, it says here his first appearance was in Legion, Superboy in the Legion 253. Well, the next issue, 254, was my very first Legion issue that I ever read.
Mm.
And so I was introduced to the character when he was, quote unquote, a bad guy of the Legion. Yeah. And I have the issues. I haven't read them. But I've always been curious to read that progression from when he was part of the, what was the group that he was?
The League of Super Assassins?
Assassins, yes. Yeah. Okay.
To Super Assassins.
to becoming a member, and because that seems like a really fascinating journey and story,
right?
That I'm just not familiar with.
I just feel like if block is just a block of mountain, well, why wouldn't Stone Boy be a Legionnaire? Other than the fact that when he's using his power, he's just a statue. So I guess that makes sense. But
yeah,
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Because really, I mean, granted, a lot of the Legionnaires, their abilities are just what everybody on their planet have, but they were the first ones to join the Legion, so therefore they get some sort of notoriety there.
Yeah.
So I guess he falls along those lines. And maybe, like I said, that journey to become a hero is, that's a very tantalizing storyline. So plus he has a somewhat interesting personality. He certainly seems to be a touchstone for Timberwolf, if no one else.
Right. What'd you think of, so for Bouncing Boy, we have Keith Giffen and Carl Kessel on the art.
Mm-hmm.
And in the background, we see Montauk Point, the Legion Academy. I really didn't have anything about Bouncing Boy other than it's interesting that he drinks an experimental superplastic fluid. I sort of feel like some perverse writer might say in the future what he really drank was Plastic Man, because Plastic Man.
Oh my God, that would be funny.
He couldn't hold his shape anymore, and he's just like a liquid dripping mass. And by the 30th century, they're like, "Oh, what's this beaker? Oh, this looks cool." Gulp, 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 and then you get Bouncing Boy. But so that talk about body horror. That was really the only thing I got from the Bouncing Boy entry.
Yeah. Well, the thing I'll mention is the first appearance of Bouncing Boy is the same as Brainiac 5, which I guess I didn't realize.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Because I remember pretty distinctly Bouncing Boy's first appearance, and I don't Brainiac 5's, which is weird because he's one of my favorite Legionnaires.
The Brainiac 5 one, the artwork is by Kurt Swan and Carl Kessel.
Mm-hmm. And boy, this is the difference an inker makes, because I would not. I mean, you can see it, but at first glance, you may not realize that that's Kurt Swan pencils. Yeah, yeah. Because Carl Kessel is very noticeable here. The thing that kind of flipped me out about Brainiac 5 and Brainiac was this whole thing about Quirrell-Dox is descended from Vril-Dox, a boy adopted by the original Brainiac. And, I know that that's the thing for the Legion series that spins out of Invasion. And I think I remembered that there was a son, quote unquote, pre-Crisis. But I didn't realize that he didn't have many appearances, this Vril-Dox. He apparently only really had like one appearance in the story. I was reading the synopsis, and he's barely in like a couple panels. But I thought it was interesting that the footnote to that story said something like, "See, Brainiac 5 really isn't a descendant of Brainiac. He's a descendant of this boy that is considered basically Brainiac 2." And now eventually, so it kind of flipped me out that this was pre-invasion and they were already sort of discussing all this. So yeah. And wasn't there a version of Brainiac that was, if not humanoid, and it was in, I think, the Adventures of Superman title? I think that was. Oh, you mean with Post-Crisis? John Byrne. Was it John Byrne? Or Jerry Ordway, where he I remember the Jerry Ordway one. Yeah. He was like a circus guy, a mentalist. Yeah. And then, but he got infected, I think, by an alien mind. Okay, yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the Brainiac version that they have here
which is artwork by Ed Hannigan and Mike DiCarlo, is the more robotic version of the, most people aren't familiar with this one unless you were watching like Superpowers and Super Friends and stuff like that. But in that same story where they introduce Brainiac 2 and they do kind of an origin story for this Brainiac, basically the whole thing is like the people of Colu, who are Brainiac 5's people, they create these machines that look oddly like Computo, the old Computo that was like tall and yellow and blocky, but these machines are like green. They create these machines and the machines turn on them. It's kind of like the Cylons. And then they create the green skinned Brainiac that we know to act like a spy, to go to all these other worlds. And that's why Brainiac went and shrunk all the cities, blah, blah, blah. So, but before they made the Brainiac that we know, they obviously started from his skeleton, and it's metallic and robotic. And it actually looks like, we're talking back in 60 something or 50 something. It does look kind of like this version that Ed Hannigan created. So when I saw that, I was like trying to Google first appearances of Brainiac 2, and I saw this image. I was like, oh my God, look, there is an in-story continuity thing of, the insides of the green Brainiac that we know does look like this robot version. So I wonder if Ed Hannigan saw that and say, oh, let me do a spin on that. So I was like, maybe this whole Brainiac robotic version isn't as random as I used to always think it was.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
I just want to mention one more thing about the Brainiac 5 page, because we see him essentially hugging Supergirl. In this image. And the reason I wanted to point it out is when I was reading through the letter column for issue 10, I already talked about the complaint about the romance involved, and in Levitz's response, he makes note of Brainiac 5 and Supergirl's relationship as more of a Brainiac 5 has a crush on her. And I thought, I've had crushes. I never hugged the girl that was my crush. like they're showing Brainiac 5 and Supergirl on this page and Who's Who. But, maybe by the 30th century things have progressed. I don't know, perhaps.
I think they acted more than just crutches in some of those issues around, the 300s or the late 200s, the early 300s. I'm pretty sure there was some more kissing and canoodling going on than just a crush.
Yeah. I just thought that was weird that Levitz himself would describe their relationship as just a crush. I mean, they definitely flirted. I'm thinking specifically of the Great Darkness saga, in which Supergirl, flies in for a visit, and boy, is she flirting like crazy with Brainiac 5.
Yeah,
in that story. So, that's how I always envision their relationship. They have a thing for each other, but Brainiac 5 is, very nerdy and not perhaps pursuing as he would like to, i.e. being the very comic nerd that is reading these issues. But I always, like I said, I always thought I was more than just a typical crush.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's wishful thinking on my part. I wanted them to actually be a couple, and we didn't quite really get that with them.
So that's our look at Who's Who. That's probably what, we're just going to touch on some things, and there wasn't any big revelation this time around other than Block's costume, which is kind of fun. But we'll see. We'll keep doing this, probably every episode if a Who's Who entry has, Legion related entries. I just thought it was kind of fun, especially just to go back and look at some of this really cool artwork.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for this episode.
All righty. So if people want to get a hold of us to provide feedback about this issue, or, as you said at the top of the show, to give us feedback about future issues that we will eventually touch on, how can they do that with you, Peter?
Peter at thedailyrios.com.
And they can get a hold of me if they'd like by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com.
Awesome. All right, Eric. We'll see you next episode.
Sounds good. And in the meantime, Peter, long live the Legion Project podcast. All right, Peter. Good talking with you.
I'll see you.
All right. Bye-bye.